Hey everyone, welcome to another Conversation Over Drinks. I'm Coach Wolverine.
Coach Kelowna.
And today we're going to talk about why we get addicted to toxic relationships, why we keep going back, why they just seem to be amazing, even though we know every time we go back, it doesn't change, it doesn't ever get better. You've had experience with this, I've had experience with this, and to any of our exes watching, this is not specifically pointing anybody out. This is just explaining the science and the human behavior behind why we get addicted to toxic relationships.
We're going to dial back the use of the word toxic.
Toxic, yeah. So it's actually very similar to when individuals are addicted to narcotics. It triggers the same part of the brain, and basically it's the high from the love bombing, the feel goods, and then the drastic low from feeling like the world is ending because something happened that we weren't expecting to happen, and it broke and shattered our reality of, or whatever expectation we had around said situation. And then it comes back up, and it goes back down. And actually,
peaks and valleys, right?
For cameras, basically, this is the charts. Don't mind the other notes and whatnot, but this is the chart on how this works, right? Love bomb, something bad happens. Love bomb, something bad happens. Love. Until what ends up happening is in the toxic relationships, when we get down so low, the not good relationships, that we need that love bombing just to feel normal again. This is our level of contentness. So eventually, we need their love, their specific love, not just anybody's validation, but their specific validation to bring us just to our normal. And we actually condition our brain to feel and think this way. And it's a very unfortunate thing. And this is why we have friends or family in our life where we're like, why do you keep going back to them? And they're like, I don't know, it's just whatever it is, and whatever falsified reason that they give, and it's usually just something that's given through rose-colored glasses, because we're so close to the fire we can't see it.
And ultimately, like, even if you want to look the world that we're both in too, with working out, what is the number one thing people kind of get addicted to when it comes to workouts? And like pre-workouts specifically.
Oh, pre-workouts, yeah, the high. Sorry.
And the caffeine, right? So
we were going on relationships. I'm like,
no. So if we look at,
breakups make bodybuilders.
That's true. But when we're looking at it from the chemistry side and the action and the behavior side, similar in a sense, like when we want to get addicted to something, or we do something that's going to facilitate a larger reaction, and then we take that away, it doesn't feel as good.
No.
So if you want to look at it for anyone that's not kind of feeling the charts or knowing where we're at there, if you regularly work out, typically on a ton of caffeine or whatever else for stimulants, and you remove that, but you do everything else the same, it's not going to feel the same.
Nope.
There are external factors providing us with feel-good stuff to our brain, causing our heightened reaction.
Yep.
And that is what people like. I know we both work at places that sell supplements, right? You can actively see people come in, grab their first one, and then progressively get higher and higher on the stim.
Yep.
And really understand that that's, in essence, what you're trying to do. It's the same process. Mm-hmm. So taking it out of the world of relationships and just making it like general behavior that always happens. Sport, like obviously me with athletes, right?
Yep. Like
when you win, if you win all the time, it still feels good because it's competitive. But and then you win a big game, that's like, they talk about, the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on right now. They talk about, like, if you've been to the finals and lost, there's nothing more motivating than that, because you know what it feels like to get there and lose, and then you go there and you win. That's why that experience carries so much value when you're building a quote unquote like playoff team or something like that. Or it's really important for teams to go further and lose, because the further they get, the harder the loss is, and in turn, the bigger the feeling of like joy and absolute top of the world is going to be when they get there, if they get there. Yep. So these are systems that are actually paralleled everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's not just to stay on the relationship stuff, but the relationships are the one that just about every one of us are going to experience at some point.
Well, No, I think the supplement and the gym aspect is beautiful. Like, yeah, this topic is on relationships, but it's like you created a tangible, I can see this and I can feel this example. Do you actually know which part of this peak and value thing is actually the addictive part? Which part this is?
It's the bottom, man.
This part right here.
Spike.
It's the anticipation that we have as to what fulfillment we're going to receive. So we get addicted to the pre-workout because we're anticipating the fulfillment of the workout high. We get addicted to the lows or the raises in the relationship because we think it's going to get better. We're anticipating it's going to get better. People get addicted to smoking because of the anticipation of what they think the nicotine is going to do. Heavy drugs because of the anticipation of what they think the drug is going to create fulfillment, right? We're running away from a feeling towards another feeling, and usually that feeling is fulfillment. And which is I find interesting because in a relationship specifically, the fulfillment never ends up being there, but yet we train our mind to expect the fulfillment because we're going to be the change.
But what do we tell everybody, right? What have we talked about a ton of times on here? If you fill your own cup first, it's going to spill over to those around you and those that you care about. Yeah. So the most important thing is having goals, purpose, those things that we've discussed, right? Like filling your cup up. And if you do your things with purpose, with goals, like even in the gym, right, you have long-term goals, when you're not feeling it, you're going to go still make it work.
Yep.
And when your goal, we've talked about it before too, with complementary dynamics in a relationship, when the goal becomes unified in some sense, or at the very least supported, but you still feel like you're not losing yourself in something, then you're able to go and still build bigger and better things because it's complemented. Same thing in the gym, like your results in the gym are going to be complemented by a long-term goal, accountability, purpose, all these things. These are, again, the exact same traits that we have there. And I have this conversation with a lot of my younger clients. It's, hey, we start in the gym and then we take these exact same concepts and we move them elsewhere because we need delayed gratification. We need to show up on bad days. We need to have bad days, take losses. Like progress isn't a linear thing. And all of these lessons, I use the gym, and specifically using the gym because just about everything that we do in the gym has isolated variables.
Absolutely.
So we can control the environment. There's not a lot of places, if any, in our lives where we can actually control the environment in the way that we would control a workout program, a workout, a practice, these types of things. So that heightened level of control gives us the ability to make tweaks and understand and work on things like, again, delayed gratification and these traits and understandings that carry to outside of the gym.
Yep.
So in doing that, right, if you don't look at a relationship like you're going to the gym. That's not a good idea. But there are commonality factors and pillars that you can lean on.
Well, here's another reference too. If we go for one workout and we look in the mirror tomorrow, are we going to see results?
No.
Exactly. But if we do that for a year, are we going to see results? Clearly. So if we're in a relationship and it's not working the way that we think it should be working, how are we going to fix that? Communication, basically, because communication nowadays seems to be a bit of a superpower because it's not something that's regularly practiced. It is a skill that needs more attention in life. So if we look at our relationships and communication is not there, one conversation about communication is not going to fix the relationship. But over the course of time, if both parties are wanting to make things work and are actively communicating, then things will slowly start getting worked out. But if it's only one-sided, it's not going to. So then this is where we got to take a step back, I believe, and ask ourselves, is this the foundation of this, whether or not it be going to the gym or in this relationship, is this foundation rooted on love or fear? Are we going to the gym because we love ourselves or because we fear what not going to the gym is going to produce? Right? Are we in this relationship because we love this person or do we fear being alone? Most often, if we're in a bad, toxic relationship, and it's toxic again for you, if we're in those relationships, it's on the foundation of fear because we're afraid to be alone. We're afraid of loss. We're afraid of the unfamiliar. There's very few people that I've met in my life anyways that are in unhealthy relationships on a foundation of love. It's not really, I don't really see those two things correlating.
For me, it's like if you meet someone that's in a relationship that's not going well, it's very much different to be like, I'm in a bad relationship or I'm in a bad portion of my relationship and I'm going to figure it out. Very big difference.
But then if you're in a bad portion of the relationships, you have two parties actively working together to overcome whatever said hurdle.
Exactly.
But if it's a one-sided thing, well, it's a lose-lose situation for both.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. I know I've had conversations with people where I've asked them this question and they're not super stoked after I ask it. Is like, if things got any worse, would you still be in that situation? And the answer typically is no. And a lot of the times we would look at these people and be like, hey, well, you don't really accept the bare, like, is the bare minimum acceptable to you anywhere else? At work is the bare minimum. In your conversations with your friends is the bare minimum. If even in your conversation with family is like the bare minimum, like, is that what you accept? And quite often, again, the answer is no. So in one of the most important relationships we're supposed to have, how is then the bare minimum acceptable? Right? When you go to the gym, do you accept the bare minimum, which would be 3 days a week, 20 minutes at a time?
Yeah. I went through the doors today. Woo!
So like, if we're not accepting the bare minimum anywhere else, why are we doing it there? And this is your rose-colored glasses again. This is where we really have to look and be like, okay, I'm working everywhere else. This demands more effort, but in this sense, the gym is your own efforts. A lot of the other stuff is your own efforts. This isn't an effort that can be done alone. And it has to be done in unison. And the hardest part, as you said, is the communicating that unison needs to happen.
Right.
So being able to sit down and own the fact, like, I can only do this, and figuring out what you need coming back or where the compromise needs to happen is the biggest piece. And I don't think, I'm by no means going to sit here and say I am a communication expert. I need more practice at sitting down and having healthy conversations. And this is something I'm actively working on. And which that's just it. If I'm working on it and the effort is there, that's all I can offer.
Okay, so a lot of you guys are probably thinking the why or if you're wanting to make a change and why it's so difficult to make a change. Well, it's the comfort and chaos theory. So essentially, our brain wants to go from point A to point B in the most efficient way possible. And our brain wants to be at peace. We want to look around us and be, everything's good, life is good. Now, most often, that's not actually the case, but our brain wants to rationalize that. So, when we are in chaos, okay, it feels like life is burning down around us, our subconscious is going to look around and be like, you know what, it's okay, this is fine. Because if it gets worse, minimum accepted, if it gets worse, I'll make a change. But this right now is fine. When we jump out of this fire into the water is very cold. And if we don't keep ourselves in check, we want to get back into the heat of the fire because we have not given ourselves enough time to jump out of the fire and change the definition with the relationship of what we believe peace to be. Because right now, if we're over here in the water, but our subconscious definition of peace is still rooted in chaos over here, our thermostat or whatever it is that you want to look at, we're always going to gravitate back to this. So we have to force ourselves to be in the boredom, yes, the boredom of a healthy relationship or being alone long enough for our definition of peace to move from chaos into actual legitimate peace. And it's the same thing where if we go to the gym to lose weight, if we lose 50 pounds in 5 months, hey, that's great. But if we all of a sudden jump off of our diet, we're going to gain all of that back right easily. But if we lost all of that weight, maintain that 50 pounds off for say a year and a half, 2 years, and we wanted to go back to our diet 2 years ago, we're not going to gain all of that weight back lickety-split because our internal thermostat has actually changed. Our definition has moved over to our new, what's the word, homeostasis?
Yep.
Is that the right word? Yeah, so the whole thing has transitioned. So if you catch yourself in this loop of, going back and forth and being like, well, why am I stuck? That's why, is because you're not sitting in the discomfort of the unfamiliar of being alone or in a healthy relationship long enough to change what your subconscious's definition of peace truly is.
And when you said the word, term boredom, chemically neutral would be kind of the other way. We're not chasing a big high and we're not running after a big low.
I use boredom just to kind of illustrate a picture.
It is. It's kind of a neutral sense,
when
right?
we're always running on a cortisol high, everything else, like when we're in a relationship where we're constantly fighting, like yelling at each other and stuff like that, it becomes a high. So then when you're not, all of a sudden it becomes bored, and we will self-sabotage to create entertainment around ourselves.
And then you start facilitating, like, it's weird if you're not in chaos, essentially. So that discomfort, and I know one of the easiest things with my clients and stuff, we talk about having things like cold showers, doing heat exposure, these types of personal individual things that just can start wrapping your brain around being in discomfort. If you've never stayed in a sauna until you start feeling anxious and panicky, it's not fun, but
No, it's not.
but it's okay.
It is okay.
You can leave when it gets bad enough. I did a couple Sundays ago, I tried to do the 2 hour 30 minutes at a time. I did 30 minutes in, 5 minutes out, 30 minutes in, 5 minutes out for 2 hours. And by the last 10 minutes of the fourth round was a very long 10 minutes.
I believe it was. I believe that. That's a long time.
If you haven't tried it, drink a lot of water and try it. But you might want to try it cold first because it's only like 8 minutes.
Right. All right, you got anything else to add to this one?
No, I think that's it. It's one of the cooler things, and I really like drawing the parallels from fitness and all that because it's very isolated, very personal, to bringing those concepts into the other aspects of your life that you want to work on. Mm-hmm. It's a huge thing I do with my athletes too. We take the exact same concepts if you're going to work on something in the gym, to work on a skill, to take it to a game. Those concepts track pretty much across everything we do in life. There's just a lot more variables.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah,
I agree,
and don't accept the bare minimum because it's not good for anybody.
No, don't accept the bare minimum, and also remember too that like being in that cycle isn't good. So if you are watching and you are finding yourself in this cycle, you are the only one that can change this. And I've been there, Kyle's been there, like we've all been there. So not singling out anybody. This is our life is our responsibility. And so if you're wanting to change, be okay with things being quiet around you for a little bit, not feeling the need to go back to it just because of the feeling that you need to. You don't need that negativity in your life. Nobody does. But that's it for today, guys. Please like. Oh, you got something else?
No, that's
No? All right. Like, share, subscribe. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.